Admiral Vexcara stepped into the massive tribunal chamber, her blue-scaled skin catching the artificial starlight from above. The room stretched beyond what most species could see, filled with representatives from 47 different worlds. Her clawed feet clicked against the crystalline floor as she approached the witness stand, each step echoing like a death knell through the silence. The Galactic Tribunal had seen many war criminals before, but never one who came willingly to testify about their own defeat. Vexcara's once proud uniform hung loose on her frame, torn and patched from battles she wished she could forget. Dark scars crossed her reptilian features, souvenirs from humanity's impossible victory. Judge Morthak, a towering insectoid creature, with compound eyes that reflected 1,000 tiny lights, leaned forward on his throne-like seat. His mandibles clicked impatiently as other judges took their positions. The ethereal counselor Zephyra floated nearby, her gaseous form shimmering with curiosity. Even the ancient Silicon Lords had sent representatives, their rock-like bodies, grinding softly as they settled into place. "State your name and rank for the record," Judge Morthak's voice boomed through the chamber's translation matrix. "Admiral Vexcara, former Supreme Commander of the Dominion's 3rd Expansion Fleet," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying clearly to every corner of the vast space. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. The Dominion fleet was legendary across the galaxy. They had conquered over 300 star systems without a single defeat. Their battle tactics were studied in military academies on 1,000 worlds. Their technology was so advanced that most species simply surrendered rather than face them in combat. "You stand accused of war crimes against a developing species," continued Judge Morthak. "How do you plead?" Vexcara raised her head, meeting the judge's compound gaze directly. "I plead guilty, Your Honor, but I did not come here to seek mercy. I came to warn you all about what we discovered in the Sol system." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Delegates from the Hive Collective buzzed anxiously while the Crystal Singers rang out harmonic notes of surprise. The Silicon Lords ground, their stone bodies together, in what passed for laughter among their kind. "The humans," Vexcara continued, raising her voice above the noise, "were led by Admiral Park Minho. I had studied thousands of military commanders from across the galaxy, analyzed their strategies, learned their weaknesses. But this human was different. He didn't fight like any species we had encountered before." She paused, her scaled hands gripping the witness stand until her claws left marks in the metal. Commander Lee Sojin coordinated their orbital defense platforms with precision that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. Captain Kim Tae-woo managed their communications network, somehow keeping their forces connected even as we jammed their frequencies and destroyed their relay stations. These names mean nothing to you now, but they should terrify every species in this galaxy. Judge Zilandra of the Plasma Courts, her energy form crackling with skepticism, interrupted. "You speak of fear regarding a species that had not even achieved faster-than-light travel when you encountered them. Explain this contradiction." Vexacara's laugh was bitter and hollow. "I commanded the largest invasion force in Dominion history, 500 dreadnoughts, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. We had battle cruisers that could level continents, fighters that moved faster than most species could think, and weapons that could boil oceans." She gestured toward the holographic display that materialized above the chamber, showing the impressive silhouettes of Dominion warships arranged in perfect formation. The humans had 5 orbital platforms. 5. Ancient constructions that looked like they were built from scrap metal and determination. Their largest warship was smaller than our Fair-Escort fighters. We outnumbered them 100 to 1. The mathematics seemed simple, elegant even. The silence in the chamber grew heavy as delegates leaned forward in their seats. Appendages or energy forms. "You were wrong," stated Judge Morthak, his mandibles clicking ominously. "Catastrophically wrong," Vexcara replied, her voice cracking, with an emotion that most species present had never heard from a Dominion officer before. Fear. She activated her personal datapad, and suddenly the chamber filled with recordings from the battle. The sound of human voices coordinating their defense filled the air, calm and professional, even as explosions bloomed around their positions. The delegates watched in fascination as tiny human fighters darted between massive Dominion vessels, like insects around giants. "Look at these recordings carefully," Vexkara said, pointing to specific tactical movements. "Watch how they adapt, see how they learn. Every time we destroyed one of their ships, they analyzed the wreckage and improved their defenses. Every time we changed our attack patterns, they countered within minutes." The holographic display showed a human pilot named Captain Song Hyun Woo, manually steering his damaged fighter directly into a Dominion weapons array, sacrificing himself to create an opening for his fellow humans. "This pilot could have ejected safely," Vexkara explained, her voice growing quieter. "His escape pod was functional, but he chose to ram our battleship instead, buying his comrades precious seconds to regroup. We had never encountered such tactical sacrifice from strangers, fighting for strangers." The chamber fell completely silent, as the implications sank in across dozens of different forms of consciousness. The memory crystal hummed to life in the center of the tribunal chamber, projecting a three-dimensional recreation of that fateful day. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as space itself seemed to tear open, revealing the dark void of hyperspace. Then came the Dominion fleet. 500 massive dreadnoughts materialized in perfect formation, their black hulls stretching for kilometers each. The smallest destroyer was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons arrays glowed with contained plasma energy, ready to reduce planets to cosmic dust. The ships moved with mechanical precision, blotting out entire constellations. As they advanced toward Earth's solar system, Admiral Vexkara watched her pass self-commanding from the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance. The younger version of herself stood tall and confident, her scaled skin gleaming under the bridge lights. She had conducted this same routine 300 times before across the galaxy. Show overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, then integrate the new species into the Dominion Empire. Simple, efficient, and always successful. Activate the intimidation protocols, her past self commanded. The dreadnoughts spread into a wall formation that stretched across space, their hulls reflecting the light from Sol's yellow star. Weapon systems charged with audible hums that vibrated through ship hulls. It was a display designed to break the will of any species before the first shot was fired. Meanwhile, on Defense Platform Alpha, Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-soo was finishing his morning coffee when the proximity alarm started screaming. The coffee mug slipped from his hands, floating in the station's low gravity, as he rushed to his command console. The tactical display showed what should have been impossible. 500 massive contacts appearing at the edge of their sensor. "Range, this has got to be a malfunction," muttered Sergeant Kim Woo-jin from the sensor station. His fingers danced across holographic controls, running diagnostics that came back clean every time. "Sir, the computers are saying there are hundreds of ships out there, each bigger than anything in our databases." Choi Min-soo stared at the display for exactly 3 seconds before his training kicked in. He had been through every possible scenario at the Space Defense Academy, but nothing had prepared him for this scale of contact. His hands moved automatically to the communications array. "Lunar Base, this is Platform Alpha. We have multiple unknown contacts, very large, very many, requesting immediate priority channel with Admiral Park." The response came back within seconds. Admiral Park Min-ho's calm voice filled the command center, steady as if he was discussing weather reports instead of potential alien invasion. "Choi, what's your status?" "Sir, we're receiving what appears to be a surrender demand. It's being transmitted on multiple frequencies in what looks like a mathematical language. Our computers are working on translation now." There was a pause that lasted exactly 4 heartbeats. Then Park's voice returned, still utterly calm. "Understood. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. Get Dr. Yang on the line and tell Captain Kang to start moving our ships into defensive positions. And Choi?" "Yes, sir?" "Remember your training. We knew this day might come." Protocol 7 had been theoretical until this moment. Dr. Yang Hye-jin had spent 15 years developing it in her laboratory on Earth, working with linguists, mathematicians, and cultural experts from around the world. It was humanity's planned response to first contact with hostile aliens, based on one simple principle. If they wanted to fight, they would at least understand who they were fighting. Yang's fingers flew across her workstation as she began transmitting everything. Not just surrender or defiance, but humanity itself. Complete cultural databases streamed toward the alien fleet. Every song ever recorded, every poem ever written, every mathematical proof discovered. She transmitted the complete works of Shakespeare alongside advanced physics theories. Children's lullabies broadcast next to detailed medical procedures. They want to know about humans, Yang muttered to herself as she worked. Then they'll know everything. At the same time, Captain Kang Ji-hoon was coordinating humanity's pathetic excuse for a space fleet. 3 destroyers, 7 frigates, and 2 experimental cruisers. Barely enough firepower to scratch the paint on a single alien dreadnought. But Kang had studied every space battle in human history, from ancient naval conflicts to theoretical scenarios. All ships, this is Fleet Command, Kang transmitted on encrypted channels. Move to defensive pattern Delta 7. Stay close to the orbital platforms, and remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to buy time and make them respect us. The alien response to humanity's cultural transmission was immediate confusion. Admiral Vexkara's communication officers frantically tried to process the flood of information streaming from Earth. "Admiral, they're transmitting massive amounts of data," reported Communications Chief Thekmar, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "Cultural information, scientific data, artistic works. We've never seen anything like this response pattern." Vexkara studied the transmission logs with growing bewilderment. Most species either surrendered immediately or began preparing weapons. But humans were doing both, and neither at the same time. "They're broadcasting poetry while preparing for war," she had told her bridge crew then, and now she repeated those same words to the tribunal. Lieutenant Bexara detected their ships moving into defensive formations, while Dr. Hai Jin continued transmitting what appeared to be children's songs. This behavior was unprecedented in our experience. The memory crystal showed the moment when everything changed. A young human communications officer named Park So-young had managed to establish a direct channel to the Dominion flagship. Her image appeared on Vexkara's command screen, young, frightened, but determined. "This is Earth. Defense Platform Alpha," Park So-young had said in carefully pronounced galactic standard. "We receive your message. We understand you want us to surrender. But before we give you our answer, we want you to understand who we are." Vexkara remembered the chill that had run down her spine at those words. No species had ever asked the Dominion to understand them before accepting conquest. The first plasma bolt from the Dominion dreadnought, Void Crusher, lit up space like a miniature sun. Captain Nam Soo-jin barely had time to scream, "Evasive maneuvers," before the superheated energy struck the EAS Soul directly amidships. The human frigate, built from titanium alloys and human determination, simply ceased to exist. One moment, it was there, its crew of 47 souls going about their duties, and the next there was only expanding gas and twisted metal. Admiral Vexkara watched from her flagship's bridge as the battle unfolded exactly as predicted. Her tactical officers had run the simulations thousands of times. Human ships were primitive, their weapons barely capable of scratching Dominion armor plating. Their shields were laughable compared to Dominion energy barriers. This would be over within the hour. "Target the destroyer Busan next," she ordered, pointing at the tactical display where Captain Oh Dong-min's ship was desperately trying to find cover behind a communications satellite. "Make it quick and clean." The destroyer Busan lasted exactly 7 minutes and 34 seconds against concentrated fire from 3 Dominion battle cruisers. Captain Oh Dong-min had trained his crew well, but they were fighting with weapons designed for planetary defense against ships built to crack worlds. The Busan's point defense guns rattled uselessly against Dominion shields, while plasma cannons methodically stripped away her armor plating. But something happened in those final moments that would haunt Vexkara for the rest of her life. As the Busan's hull breached, an atmosphere vented into space, as fires raged through her corridors, and her crew prepared for death, Captain O's voice came over the communication channels one last time. "All stations, this is Busan Actual. We're done for, but we got what we came for. Transmitting complete weapon signature analysis to Fleet Command." The plasma frequency is 847.3 terahertz. Shield harmonics fluctuate every 4.7 seconds, and their targeting computers have a 0.3-second delay between lock-on and firing. Make them pay for every ship. Oh, out. The transmission cut off as the Busan exploded in a brilliant flash, taking Captain O and his crew of 96 into the void. But those 96 lives had just changed everything. On Defense Platform Beta, Engineer Park Young-ho received the data burst from the dying destroyer, while plasma bolts flew past his station's viewports. His hands were shaking as he processed Captain O's final gift, but his mind was racing faster than his fingers could type. If their weapons cycle every 4.7 seconds, he muttered to himself, then our torpedoes need to adjust course during that gap. His fingers flew across holographic displays, rewriting targeting algorithms that had taken months to develop. He was modifying weapons systems in real time while the battle raged around him. 23 minutes later, the first modified torpedo from Platform Beta struck a Dominion cruiser's shield generator during its harmonic fluctuation window. The explosion that followed sent shockwaves through both fleets. A human weapon had actually damaged a Dominion warship. "Impossible," whispered Vexkara's tactical officer, a spider-like creature named Krikstal whose 8 eyes were focused on the damage reports streaming in. "Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields," but the impossible was becoming routine. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Min-jung on the human cruiser Daegu was already implementing Park's modifications across her weapon systems. Her torpedo, spread 15 minutes later, took out an entire Dominion destroyer escort, using the shield frequency data that Captain O had died to provide. The most disturbing development came from the human rescue operations. As Dominion fighters were shot down or suffered technical failures, their pilots ejected in standard escape pods. Military doctrine across the galaxy was simple. Enemy pilots were either killed or captured for interrogation. Humans rescued them. Medical Officer. Dr. Shin Yun-young was working frantically in the emergency bay of Defense Platform Alpha when the first Dominion survivors arrived. The alien pilot was a Kelthari, one of the Dominion's warrior species, with 4 arms and natural armor plating. He had been pulled from his damaged fighter by Commander Lee Ho-jin himself, who had risked his own life to retrieve the enemy pilot from a debris field. "Why?" the Kelthari pilot gasped in broken human English as Dr. Shin worked to treat his radiation burns. "Why save enemy?" Dr. Shin looked up from her medical scanner, meeting the alien's compound eyes. "Because you're hurt and I'm a doctor. That's all that matters right now." The pilot stared at her in complete bewilderment. In 300 years of Dominion expansion, no conquered species had ever treated their wounded. Most either killed prisoners outright or left them to die in space. Commander Lee Ho-jin entered the medical bay, carrying another wounded Dominion officer, this one from the heavy cruiser, Dominance Eternal. The alien was bleeding green fluid from multiple wounds. His breathing labored through damaged respiratory organs. "Doc, this one's in bad shape," Lee reported, gently placing the enemy officer on an examination table. "Found him floating near the wreckage of that fighter squadron we took out. What happened next would be broadcast across every remaining human ship and somehow intercepted by Dominion communication arrays." Dr. Shin began emergency surgery on the alien officer, while Commander Lee assisted, both of them working to save the life of someone who had been trying to kill them minutes earlier. The psychological impact rippled through both fleets. Dominion pilots found themselves hesitating to fire on rescue shuttles, clearly marked with human medical symbols. Some began questioning orders for the first time in their military careers. Admiral Vexkara watched the medical bay footage with growing horror. Her communication officers had intercepted the human broadcasts, showing Dominion warriors being treated with the same care as human casualties. Enemy pilots were receiving blood transfusions, surgical procedures, and recovery therapy. "They saved our people while we were killing theirs," Vexkara's voice cracked as she testified to the tribunal. The memory crystal showed Commander Lee Ho-jin personally carrying 3 wounded Dominion officers to safety, his own uniform singed from plasma fire, his face streaked with sweat and alien blood. This psychological warfare was more devastating than any weapon, she continued, her scaled hands trembling as she spoke. My pilots began refusing targeting orders. My crew started asking questions about the morality of conquest. In 6 hours of combat, humans had done something we thought impossible. They had made us doubt ourselves. The tribunal chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. Warfare was supposed to be about superior technology and tactical advantage. No one had prepared for an enemy that treated surrender and compassion as weapons. By hour 6 of the engagement, the impossible had become routine. Commander Yoon Seung-ho sat hunched over his workstation, aboard Defense Platform Charlie, surrounded by scattered coffee cups and data tablets displaying alien technology schematics. His bloodshot eyes tracked endless streams of numbers flowing across multiple screens while explosions lit up space outside his viewport. "Got it!" he shouted suddenly, causing his exhausted engineering team to look up from their own jury-rigged equipment. The Dominion shields rotate through 17 different frequencies, but there's a pattern. Every 43 seconds, they cycle back to the primary frequency for exactly 0.8 seconds. His fingers danced across holographic displays, uploading the shield frequency data to every remaining human vessel. Within minutes, human torpedoes were timing their impacts to strike during those brief vulnerability windows. What had been impossible hits were becoming routine precision strikes. Meanwhile, something even more extraordinary was happening in the wreckage field between the two fleets. Captain Bai Min-jung had ejected from her destroyed fighter, only to find herself floating next to a damaged Dominion interceptor. The alien pilot inside was unconscious, but alive. His four-armed form slumped over controls that looked nothing like human technology. Most pilots would have waited for rescue. Bai climbed inside the alien fighter. "Okay, let's see how this works," she muttered, studying the bizarre array of crystalline interfaces and bio-neural connections. The Dominion fighter's cockpit was designed for a completely different species, with controls that responded to electrical impulses from specialized nerve endings. But Bai had spent 8 years as a test pilot, learning to fly anything with wings or engines. She started by touching different surfaces, watching how the ship's systems responded. The main thruster control seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. The targeting system activated when she focused her eyes on specific points. Within 20 minutes, she was flying the alien fighter back toward human lines, broadcasting identification codes to prevent friendly fire. "Control, this is Bai in a borrowed ride," she radioed back to Platform Charlie. "You're not going to believe this, but I think I can teach others how to fly these things." The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Engineer Young Woo-jin had been tasked with analyzing debris from destroyed Dominion ships, looking for anything useful. In the wreckage, what he found was a partially intact communication relay, still connected to the Dominion fleet's tactical network. Young had always been good with computers, but this was alien technology built by species with completely different ways of thinking. The code structure was based on quantum probability rather than binary logic. The user interface was designed for minds that could process 16 parallel thought streams simultaneously. "This is insane," Jung whispered to himself as he worked through the night, surviving on energy drinks and pure determination. Their entire network is one giant organism. Every ship is like a brain cell connected to every other ship. But insane didn't mean impossible. Jung began mapping the network's architecture, understanding how information flowed between ships. The Dominion's strength was also their weakness. Their perfect coordination depended on constant communication between all vessels. At 0347 hours, Jung found his way inside. The first sign of trouble came when Dominion Battle Group 7 began, firing on Battle Group 3. Admiral Vex Kara watched in horror from her flagship's bridge as her own ships turned their weapons on each other, plasma cannons lighting up space with friendly fire. "What's happening?" she demanded, her scaled hands gripping the command chair as explosions bloomed among her fleet formations. "Unknown, Admiral," reported her tactical officer, tentacles writhing with confusion. Battle Group 7 reports that Battle Group 3 is showing hostile targeting signatures. Battle Group 3 claims the same about Battle Group 7, the E. Truth was both simpler and more terrifying. Young Woo-jin had inserted false data into the Dominion tactical network, making ships appear as enemies to their own allies. While Dominion vessels were destroying each other, human ships struck with surgical precision at weakened targets. Technical specialist Kim Hai-won cracked our encryption in 4 hours. Admiral Vexkara testified to the tribunal, her voice hollow, with remembered disbelief. The memory crystal showed Kim working at her station, surrounded by quantum computers and alien hardware. It had taken our best cryptographic minds 3 years to develop that encryption system. She broke it during active combat, while explosions were shaking her platform. Kim had done more than crack their encryption. She had rewritten it, turning the Dominion's own secure communications into a weapon against them. False orders began, flowing through their command structure. Ships received navigation data that sent them into asteroid fields. Weapons systems were remotely disabled at critical moments during combat. Lieutenant Colonel Park Subin became the conductor of this digital orchestra, coordinating human attacks using the Dominion's own tactical networks. From her command post, deep inside Lunar Base, she could see the position of every enemy ship, monitor their ammunition levels, and predict their movements before their own captains made decisions. Strike Team Alpha, move to coordinates 447.3 by 892.1. Park transmitted to a squadron of human fighters. Enemy destroyer Void Render will be rotating to port in 30 seconds, exposing her reactor housing. You'll have a 4-second window. The attack proceeded exactly as planned. Park's intelligence was perfect because she was reading it directly from the enemy ship's own navigation computer. The Dominion's numerical advantage became meaningless when their own systems betrayed them. Ships that should have been supporting each other were isolated by false communication breakdowns. Ammunition supplies were rerouted to the wrong vessels. Repair drones began dismantling healthy ships while ignoring damaged ones. Dr. Lee Min-ki, a quantum computing specialist who had been working on theoretical mathematics just days before, found himself rewriting alien artificial intelligence algorithms in real time. The Dominion ships relied on AI systems to coordinate their complex maneuvers, but Lee was teaching those same AIs to make fatal mistakes. It's like giving someone wrong directions while they're driving, Lee explained to his exhausted team. They think they're following their GPS, but we're sending them off cliffs. The battle had become a demonstration of human adaptability versus alien rigidity. The Dominion had perfected their warfare over centuries, creating systems so advanced and integrated that they seemed unbeatable. But perfection was also brittleness. When humans found the cracks in their perfect system, everything began to crumble. By hour 8, Admiral Vexkara was commanding a fleet that was defeating itself. Her perfectly coordinated armada had become a chaotic mess of friendly fire, system, failures, and impossible human counterattacks. The mathematics of warfare had been turned upside down by a species that refused to accept that some things were impossible. Admiral Vexkara stood before the Galactic Tribunal for her final testimony, her scaled form trembling not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to reveal. The massive chamber had grown completely silent, 47 different species hanging on every word, as she prepared to deliver her warning to the galaxy. Behind her, the holographic displays shifted to show scenes that defied everything the assembled delegates thought they knew about warfare. Dominion survivors floated in human medical facilities, their wounds being treated by the same species they had tried to conquer just days before. The images showed something unprecedented in galactic history, enemies becoming patients, invaders becoming guests. Admiral Park Min-ho contacted me personally after our surrender, Vexkara began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber with crystal clarity. The memory still felt surreal, even weeks later. She had been sitting in the wreckage of her flagship's bridge, surrounded by sparking consoles and the bodies of her crew, when the human transmission came through. "This is Admiral Park Min-ho of Earth Defense Command," the calm voice had said, in perfect Dominion standard. "Admiral Vexkara, are you receiving this transmission?" She had expected demands for unconditional surrender, threats against surviving Dominion forces, or at minimum some form of victory gloating. Instead, Park's first words had been, "Do you need medical assistance?" The tribunal watched in stunned silence as the holographic display showed that first meeting between the two admirals. Park had arrived aboard Vexakara's crippled flagship in a simple shuttle, accompanied only by medical personnel and engineers. No weapons, no guards, no show of force, just help. Do you know what he offered? Vexakara continued, her voice growing stronger as she relived the memory. Not conquest, not subjugation, but partnership. He stood on my bridge, surrounded by my dead crew and broken weapons, and offered to share human medical technology to save my wounded officers. Dr. Lim Sora had already been working around the clock in makeshift medical facilities, treating Dominion soldiers whose physiology she had never encountered before. The holographic display showed her bent over a Kelthari warrior, using human surgical techniques adapted in real time for alien anatomy. Her patient had been trying to kill humans just hours earlier, but she worked on him with the same dedication. She would show any human casualty. She saved over 400 of my people, Vexakara testified, pointing to the images of Dr. Lim's field hospital. 400 soldiers who should have been prisoners or corpses became patients and then guests. She learned Dominion biology faster than our own medical officers, developing treatments that our species had never discovered. Captain Seo Minki had established refugee camps for displaced Dominion civilians, families who had been living aboard the massive support vessels that accompanied every Dominion fleet. When those ships were destroyed or abandoned, thousands of non-combatants were left stranded in space. The humans had rescued them all. The holographic display showed Dominion, children playing with human toys, while their parents learned to operate human food synthesizers. Alien families were living in prefabricated human habitats, learning human languages, sharing meals prepared according to their specific dietary needs. These were not prisoners of war, Vexakara emphasized to the silent tribunal. They were refugees that humans chose to save, even though helping them drained resources needed for their own defense. Judge Morthak's compound eyes reflected confusion as he spoke. Your testimony suggests that humans treat defeated enemies as allies. This contradicts all known patterns of interspecies conflict. Because humans don't just fight to win, Vexakara replied, turning to face the full assembly of galactic representatives. They fight to transform. Colonel Han Jiwoo told me something I'll never forget during our first diplomatic meeting. The memory was burned into her consciousness. Colonel Han had been negotiating the terms of Dominion surrender, but the conversation had quickly turned to something else entirely. They had been sitting in what used to be the Dominion flagship's war room, now converted into a temporary conference center. We didn't defeat you to destroy you, Han had said, leaning forward with an intensity that surprised Vexakara. We defeated you to save both of us. Your empire was built on conquest and domination. That path leads to endless war until everyone is destroyed. We want to show you a different way. Commander Moon Tae-young had been even more direct. Humans see every enemy as a potential friend, he had explained while helping coordinate joint salvage operations. We learned long ago that today's enemy can become tomorrow's strongest ally if you give them the chance. The holographic displays shifted to show joint human-Dominion research teams working together, sharing technology that had been used for warfare just days before. Human engineers were learning from Dominion propulsion systems, while Dominion scientists studied human adaptive algorithms. The same minds that had been trying to destroy each other were now collaborating on projects that could benefit both species. Look at these images carefully, Vexakara commanded the tribunal. This is not propaganda or political theater. This is how humans operate. They turned our most advanced military officers into research partners within a week of our surrender. The delegation from the Hive Collective buzzed nervously among themselves. The Crystal Singer's harmonic tones had shifted to frequencies associated with deep concern. Even the ancient Silicon Lords were grinding their rocky bodies together in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. I came here to warn you all, Vexakara continued, her voice rising to fill every corner of the massive chamber. Humanity represents something we've never encountered in 300 years of galactic expansion. They combine impossible innovation with unshakable ethics. They will sacrifice everything for strangers, learn your weaknesses faster than you can adapt, and treat warfare as a problem to solve rather than a ritual to perform. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in among the assembled representatives. We had every advantage you could imagine. Superior numbers, advanced technology, centuries of military experience, and perfect coordination. But they had something we had never encountered before. They had hope paired with stubbornness. That combination makes them either our greatest allies or our ultimate extinction. The tribunal chamber erupted in urgent discussions as delegates conferred in dozens of different languages and communication methods. Electromagnetic pulses, harmonic frequencies, chemical releases, and quantum entanglement patterns filled the air as 47 species debated humanity's fate. Judge Morthak called for order, his voice booming over the chaos. The tribunal will now vote on humanity's classification. The vote was unanimous. Every species, from the warlike Kelthari to the peaceful ethereal councils, agreed on humanity's new status. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Tribunal, humanity is hereby classified as a protected developmental species, Judge Morthak announced. All member species are prohibited from making contact or interference with human space. But Vexkara knew the truth, that the tribunal was afraid to speak aloud. Humanity wasn't being protected for their own safety. They were being quarantined, because they represented something the galaxy wasn't ready to handle, a species that could turn enemies into friends, warfare into cooperation, and conquest into partnership. The protection wasn't for humanity, it was for everyone else. And